wanted to take a few minutes to talk with Sarah Gershfeld about Love My Provider and some of the things that are going on. You mentioned before that it's a sort of Yelp for special needs families, but for some of us are not as cool. We don't really necessarily get the whole Yelp thing. So explain in a little bit more detail.
Sure.
If we don't know what Yelp is, what does that mean that Love My Provider is?
So we're basically a directory and resource website. So the first thing is resources, which is we try to get the most dense resource database as possible. So any provider that really works with the special needs population, we have a comprehensive list based on your location, we now have these new added search filters, which are great. You can search by age of your child, by insurance company that you work with. You can search by, particular disability that you have, not just autism, it could be a different disability. And so on top of that, we have all these providers listed, but we allow parents to leave anonymous feedback about the providers. And we're very strict with our feedback, so we don't allow a lot of name calling or negative talk or anything like that. What we're looking for is descriptions about you and your family and why that provider worked for you, so that other parents who might have a similar type of child or a similar type of family dynamic can benefit from that service.
I think that's really important to mention, that it's not a place to trash talk somebody, but it's a place, I love the name of it, Love My Provider, because all of you that are watching this, at some point in your journey, you've come across somebody that is just amazing. And when you think about if there's anything that you could give back, if you could let another family know about that service and have them benefit from what you had, that would be the best gift that you could pass on. What a wonderful thing to be able to do. But I love the flip side of it too, that if maybe there's one area that you have figured out, maybe you have the best hair cutting person for a child on the autism spectrum, but you don't have a dentist. And you desperately need to know who is the person to go, and you could spend hours researching. And I know that you know this, Sarah, and I certainly have done this before, and you still don't really have, because you asked your friend who has neurotypical kids, who's the dentist that you go to, and you just don't know. But people can go to your site and see what other people have written, correct?
Right. So I just had a wonderful lunch yesterday, actually, with a mom of a 9-year-old with autism, and I was talking to her about Love My Provider, and we're working on something cool that at some point I'll come in and talk about.
Okay,
but
cool.
One of the things we talked about is that so much of the autism community is word of mouth, which is so wonderful for the women and men, the parents who are in the know and in the network. But for the ones who are newly diagnosed, it takes them a couple years to build that support network. And so what we're hoping to do is kind of make sure that that's accessible to people as quickly as possible. Obviously you're going to make friends, you're going to grow into the autism community, but we want you to be able to get the services for your kid as quickly as possible when they're first diagnosed.
Yeah, it's like you have to reinvent the wheel, and if we're all reinventing the wheel, how much time are we losing in the meantime?
Right.
For the longest time, and we're trying really hard at Autism-Live to find a parent in each state here in the United States who is in the know about legislation and where do you have to go to get in line to get what, and so, but we can't possibly know about all the providers and all the, which is why I love being able to refer to people and say, okay, so the first thing you need to do is get connected, and here's the best way to start to get connected to the service providers is go to Love My Provider and take a look in your area and see if there's something there. You're across the nation now, but as more and more people use the site, it just gets better and better.
Yeah.
It really is something where your input has a direct influence on how people can use the site and what they can get from it.
Oh, definitely. And I always look at it as a chicken or an egg. So, before parents can find it useful, other parents have to go and leave a review. And so for any of the parents watching out there, take a minute, go on Love My Provider. If you have a provider that you really, really love, tell us about it. Tell us what worked for you. If it's not there, you can add your provider, but that's kind of the way of paying it forward to families who are going to be in your shoes in a couple of years. And as you were saying, we kind of expanded outside of this Los Angeles area, but we still get a lot of individual requests. We get emails saying, who do I go? I narrowed it down to these two. I read reviews about these two providers. Who do you think we should go to? And we were really struggling with how do we give a good response that's really based on something that we can stand behind. You know, we would, the last thing we would want is to say to go to this agency and then that agency be a disappointment or not what that parent was hoping for. So we partnered with the Behavioral Health Center of Excellence to try and identify these really, really high quality agencies. And the BHCOE is now open for nomination. So if you have any agencies that you absolutely love, you can go on bhcoe.org and you can nominate an agency. And they essentially go through a really stringent clinical audit where the Center of Excellence goes in and looks at their practices, looks at their staff satisfaction, their parent satisfaction, and gives them a badge of how well they're doing. And that hopefully is going to be that new gold standard of what a provider should be.
Love that. Because we talk a lot on the show about it's the first year that we were on the air, we talked about ABA and how important it was to get ABA. And then as time went on and more people wrote in, I certainly got educated to the fact that as there's been more funding for insurance, there's more and more ABA providers. I don't know that there's more and more good quality ABA providers. I unfortunately now have to qualify everything and say how important it is to get quality ABA. And we talk about what some of the hallmarks of that are, and now people have written in and said, okay, I get that. I see that now because I see as I'm doing research, but they want to streamline it. They want some help and support as they go along. We frequently tell them, ask other parents, and they can do that on Love My Provider, see what other parents think. But this is just another measure that's really specific and very reliable that can help them to be confident that when they're choosing a provider that this is not going to be an epic waste of time. Because sometimes people pick a provider, it's maybe the funding source said here are the two, and it's like flip a coin, which one do I go with? You start with them, you give it the college try, you're 3 months in, not seeing progress, you've got all kinds of red flags, you start the process of trying to switch. You can easily lose 6 months by being with a provider that isn't top notch.
Right, and I mean, we know very well 6 months is not a lot to you and me because let's not talk about age, but for a child, 6 months can be half of their life or a quarter of their life. So imagine losing a quarter of your life of the necessary services or medical services that you need.
Yeah, it's unthinkable. So wonderful that you guys are doing with this. So the service has started. Are you yet at the point where we can go on the site and see a rating with any of the ABA providers?
So we just put a cohort of providers through the Center of Excellence program.
Okay.
And we're hoping that by the summer those scores will be available. So the partnership is essentially that the Center of Excellence tells Love My Provider which providers are centers of excellence.
Okay.
And you'll be able to go on and see the little badge by their name on the Love My Provider website, along with those providers will be able to talk about that they're centers of excellence also.
Okay. Now, I'm sure, there's parents out there that are wondering, do you guys have a way of, the little bit that I've been on Yelp, I find Yelp reviews sometimes hilarious.
Yes.
Because occasionally you look at one and you think, okay, I don't know if this person really went to the site or this is somebody in the marketing department from this restaurant that actually did that. You always kind of wonder, how do they filter? So is there something that you guys do to make sure that it's really coming from a parent and not somebody who works for that provider?
Yeah, so what we do is we monitor the email address that the review comes in from, and we usually search the email address to make sure that it's tied to a real person.
Okay.
So we have gotten, I would say, a lot of reviews from marketing departments. They leave reviews from the email address that the agency is, for example, and so we'll let them know that their review's been removed and why it's been removed, and we give them ways to get reviews from their families. But we also just search, most of the email addresses are very specifically linked to a social media profile of some sort, so we check to make sure that it's actually a parent with autism and kind of ensure that. So.
And I'm sure people are watching and they think, what an intelligent, young woman, and how great that she knows about sites and she knows how to do this. But your experience goes well beyond that. You have quite a bit of experience in the field of autism.
Yes.
So tell our parents, how you come to this.
Sure. So I'm actually a board certified behavior analyst.
We love that.
Yeah, I know you do. You're the biggest fan.
Yes.
So I'm a BCBA, and for a long time I was working at a large agency and saw kind of the differences in quality that could be even within a large agency. When I left the agency, I went to work for the state of California for the regional center system as a consultant. And through the consulting process, we did a quality assurance project over the course of 4 years. And we evaluated about 20 providers. And we looked at a number of different things. And we very quickly found that not all agencies are created equally. All of them have such great intentions, but sometimes the training or the background is just very vast for a lot of the agencies. So during my time working for the regional center, I thought it would be a really great opportunity to give parents an idea of how these agencies are scoring, at least from a parent report method. So at least so that they could see what the conversation among parents are. We're hoping the Center of Excellence component is really an addition to that.
Yes.
That gives the parent opinion along with a more clinical opinion about how the agency is doing.
So who better to be helping us to be able to make these decisions? And of course, we haven't mentioned that to go on Love My Provider and use it, what is the cost for that?
Absolutely free.
Absolutely free. So don't we just love that? A wonderful way for you to go and to be able to get information. lovemyprovider.com.